Recording by Barry Howarth. Firegod by Algis Budrys. Your Majesty! Dai Mersu, Emperor of all the suns, protector of the galaxy, looked up calmly as his Prime Minister burst into the room. His lean, brooding face did not change expression as he watched the pale and perspiring man cross the flagstoned floor with a sharp, nervous patter of leather. "Gently, Tors, gently," he said quietly, his eyes mocking under their overhang of dark eyebrow. "You're Prime Minister now, remember that. A Prime Minister doesn't come blundering into the palace looking as though the sky was falling. It creates unrest in the population. Try to remember that we're no longer a pair of obscure rabble-rousers trying to overthrow the crown. We are the crown now. Try to act like it." "Dai, the sky is falling," Tors burst out unheedingly. "I have word that the Earthmen are driving beyond the rim and into the heart of the Empire itself. Their ships are irresistible. They're winning battle after battle, and the people are restless. They say it's time the false Emperor's rule was overthrown. Some of the garrisons are rebelling." Still the Emperor's expression did not change. "So," he said calmly, "the Earthmen were not bluffing when they said they'd maintain the rights of the old Emperor." "Yes, you said they wouldn't die. What are we going to do?" "I was wrong, Tors," Mersu said evenly. "No matter. As for what we are going to do, why, I suppose you'd better arrange for another broadcast. Tell the people we have weapons ready if the situation becomes serious, that they have nothing to fear." "But the situation is serious. And what weapons?" "No weapons, Tors," Mersu explained patiently, "but the story will serve to keep the people calm, and perhaps make them think twice about revolt. Now go. Hurry." The Prime Minister's feet pattered over the floor again. The door to the room closed. Mersu smiled quietly. He rose and opened the concealed door behind his chair. Closing it behind him, he slipped into a passage of which no one knew, and 10 minutes later he was in a private tubeway that led halfway across the continent, into the heart of an old and barren mountain range. As he sat comfortably in the padded upholstery of the tube car, Mersu smiled again. Poor Tors, so excitable, always the hysteric. A perfect rabble-rouser, perhaps, but not a clever man. No, never a clever man. A clever man knew when the game was over, and Mersu laughed. The game had been worth it. 5 years ago he had been a revolutionary, slinking through the alleys at night, always in danger, and always clever. 4 years of that, and then empire, absolute rule over the greater Magellanic Cloud. Now he was once again in danger, but it was a danger he had long ago foreseen and planned for, and the past year had been worth it. He laughed again. Poor addle-witted Tors, left with the empty bag in his hands. The spaceship rested like a crouching bullet in its chamber. As he slid the tubeway door shut behind him, Mersu admired the savage sleekness of its lines once again. Even more, he admired his cleverness in having it built. A clever man always has a back door. He crossed the hangar floor unhurriedly and climbed into the ship. The control room was small but efficient. 100 controls lay closely around the padded chair, some of them for the standard drive, others for the hyperspatial warp. The hyperspatial warp. Mersu smiled. There was his escape. And more. Here was the means for his future rulership over nothing so small as the cloud. Here were entire galaxies waiting for his hand. Hyperspace. There was something to make a man think. Another universe, not beyond, but alongside his own, hidden in the complex byways of Riemann geometry and the mathematics of Einstein. A universe where time itself ran slower, where a year of normal time encompassed centuries. A ship could twist itself into that universe and travel just below the speed of light, the limit which, in normal space, was the barrier no ship could cross. But in hyperspace, while the same barrier existed, a man from normal space could travel for centuries, covering great distances, while for him only a few months passed. Mersu chuckled. Behind him, stored in the great holds of the ship, were working models of every machine and weapon the cloud civilization possessed. There were plans, manuals, instructions, all translated into basic symbology that any intelligent being could understand. Packed into this ship was an entire civilization, ready to be brought to whatever people Mersu chose. He had only to enter hyperspace and lose himself where no Earthman or rebel could follow, and there he would find a primitive race, barely beginning to rise out of the mud. He would bring them civilization. In return, he would have godhood. They would worship him, those primitive people. He would be Mersu the Firegod, thundering out of the sky, bringing with him the gift of civilization. And once the gift was given, he would climb back into the sky on a pillar of fire, promising to return when his people were ready. He laughed aloud, the deep bass sound echoing through the control chamber. Why not? He could fly back into space and spend a year, waiting while centuries passed on the primitive world. When he returned, that world would be his, and soon afterward the entire universe would bow before the name of Mersu, the immortal fire god, for there is no force so strong, no loyalty so great as that of men for their gods. Still laughing, he blasted the ship out of its hangar into the blackness of space, and a little later into hyperspace, while the big blue ships of Earth smashed his discarded empire behind him. In a month he had found his planet and his people. They were almost human in appearance, but shorter. So much the better. He was like them, but just different enough to be a god. He brought his ship roaring down through the atmosphere, trailing a streamer of flame. As he passed over the sea that covered most of the world, the wash of his jets kicked the water into froth, and the sound of his passage echoed through the sky. The village rested on the shore of the sea. The mud huts trembled as his ship sank down, resting on its jet stream until it settled slowly to the ground. Smiling faintly, Mersu put on his spacesuit, strapping his anti-gravity harness on over it. He flew out of his upper airlock, carrying a gun in his hand. He hovered in the air above the village. He pointed the gun into the air and fired. A cone of flame shot toward the sky. He pointed the gun at the sea, and towering curtains of steam rose to hang over the village. Mersu descended, and found his people grovelling in the mud. Weeks passed. A stream of men carried the ship's cargo into a great sprawling building that Mersu carved out of a stone cliff with a subatomic cutter. The lintels of the building were sanctified with the blood of virgins. A new class of people arose in the village, the priests of Mersu, the fire god. And as the ship rose up into space again on its journey back into the normal space where Mersu would wait his year and the centuries would pass for his people, the priests chanted over their altars, "He will return. Mersu goes to his kingdom in the sky, but he will return, bearing flame in his hands. Mersu, the fire god, Mersu, the immortal bringer of fire, will return." And the centuries passed. Mersu brought his ship out of the sky, tearing the air as he came, the growl of his jets thundering over the mighty city on the sea. The sound echoed back from the carved face of the temple of Mersu and beat against the spreading buildings. The ship settled to Earth. Mersu strapped on his anti-grav suit and flashed out into the air above the city. He fired his gun into the sea, and the steam curtain rose once more. He pointed the gun skyward, and the heavens danced with flame. A low, snarling car, bearing the sign of Mersu's priesthood, drove up to him as he touched the ground. Two men got out and walked towards him, one of them dressed in the sombre black of the priesthood. Mersu stood waiting, his eyes lighting with triumphant fire. "Who are you?" the priest asked. Mersu stared, the pose broken. "Who am I? Kneel, fool! I am Mersu, the Firegod." The two men looked at him speechlessly for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Mersu?" The priest wiped his eyes. The other man's laughter trailed into anger. "Watch your tongue, blasphemer," he said curtly, drawing a gun from his holster. "Mersu?" the priest repeated. "You're the fool, stranger. At least the others who've tried to claim his godhood had the sense to disguise himself to resemble his pictures." "Pictures change, rash priest," Mersu thundered. "I am the Firegod. Look at my power." Once more he fired into the sea, and once more the steam pillars arose. "I am the god of fire. I fly on hands of flame. I walk on the air. I burn the land and the sea. I am Mersu." The priest's face lost its tolerant amusement. His mouth twisted in scorn. "Walk on the air, do you? In a Mark 11 anti-grav belt, yes. Burn sea and land, eh? With a sun gun, certainly. Fly on hands of flame? If you wish to be picturesque about it, yes. But so does every drunken fool of a spaceman." "I tell you I am Mersu!" Mersu screamed. "Bow down and worship!" "Silence!" The priest's voice was dangerous. "You will come with us to the temple. There you'll see how we worship impostors." "I'll kill you!" Mersu shouted, raising his gun. The priest motioned with his hand. The man with him blew Mersu's head off. "Blasphemer!" the priest spat disdainfully, his voice filled with disgust. He and his retainer turned back to the car, leaving the body to be carted away later. Every evening at sunset, the priests of Mersu stand over their altars and intone the words, "He will return. Mersu, the fire god. Mersu, the immortal bringer of fire. He will return." And the people of Mersu's world intone in reply, "He will return." Throughout the galaxies of hyperspace, wherever the people of Mersu's world may wander, there are other priests and other races that respond. But the ritual is always the same. He will return. And the city waits. The planet waits. And the other planets around the other stars through all the galaxies of hyperspace wait. They always will. End of Firegod by Algis Budrys. Recording by Barry Howarth, Brisbane, Australia.